Her new movie is called Showing Up, and it comes out on April 7th, New York and Los Angeles. And here is my conversation with Kelly Reichardt. It's usually a race to the bottom with the guests we get. One's dumber than the next.
Well,
it's usually a mailman of this to the
what
stars
do you got
or whatever.
You got against mailmen.
I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah.
You talk to one, though. You talk to them all. But today, tonight,
oof.
we have a guest who is smart.
Set the bar low.
Okay.
And then I can do better.
Smarter than me. Well, I'm not very smart.
Yeah.
It's been established,
right.
Kelly. No, we have Kelly Reichardt is here. This is so exciting.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for doing
having me.
So, I met you a long time ago.
A long time ago.
Right?
In Bob Lawton's office?
Bob Lawton, the show, what would you call him, a booking agent?
Yes.
Yes. Back in the early 90s?
Yes.
Right? That's when we were all on the scene together?
Yes.
And then you made a movie, was River of Grass.
Yes.
And that was so exciting. Well, first of all, I want to say the new movie's called Showing Up.
Right.
And it's so great.
Thanks.
I loved it so much.
Thanks.
Seriously. It's just like, it's kind of the culmination of a lot of things, I think, for you.
Maybe, yeah.
Just a lot of the themes and things, maybe.
Yeah.
But back then, you made River of Grass was your first feature. And then
I scored a job in Bob Lawton's office.
Okay. And what were you doing for Bob? You were...
I guess I was in Bob's maybe before River of Grass and after River of Grass.
Sure. Okay.
I was a very bad receptionist of sorts.
Uh-huh.
I think those phones were really cheap. I could never hear what anybody was saying.
So people are calling saying, I want to book
Sleater Kinney.
Yeah.
And I'm from the blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I was just not good at it.
Sure. Because Bob booked all the cool indie bands, his agency, which was, what's it called again?
It went through different stages. It was the Labor Board, and then it was Twin Towers.
It was Twin Towers, and then it became Legends of the 21st Century.
That was brief, at the end.
Was brief. I came up with that.
Right. You did?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. That was a good one.
But it clearly wasn't.
Well, and Phil Morrison also worked there.
Yes, Phil, who is a great director and a great friend.
And was very good at the job.
Mm-hmm.
And he... I think he left it to go work for De Niro, right? But
I think he became De Niro's assistant.
Right. But when he was working for Bob, he was still at NYU, and Bob gave him a B because he was doing it for a work study.
So it was so he's
and he wouldn't give him always room to improve. Always room to improve.
Got to stay hungry at some point. You got to have somewhere to go.
Right.
Someday Bob will give Phil an A. And then it'll be over.
It'll be over.
Journey will be. Phil will exhale and.
Phew. Yeah.
So, an interesting thing to me. What River of Grass was probably like 93. Okay.
Came out in 94. Yeah.
Yeah. So you made it, and then there's like one of the things I think people with when you make things.
Yeah.
And everybody sometimes it's like, oh, where were you for this window? And a lot of people don't realize it's like my experience is when I don't have anything, I'm still working just as hard as I ever was.
Yeah.
Just things aren't breaking in the way that you got to the finish line with something.
Yeah. Right.
Because when was Old Joy? Was 10 years later?
Old Joy was in 2005.
Okay. So over a 10-year gap.
Yeah.
Because so what is it like to you make your movie, you're ready to start, and then the other stuff starts.
Then you go work for Bob Lawton.
You go work and try to, because the truth of the matter is you make an independent movie, and it's just like, you just got to start fighting to make the next thing.
Correct. Yeah. And, that, it wasn't the funnest time, I'm going to say.
Sure.
But I saw a lot of films during that time. I was still seeing a lot of films, and I was just shooting Super 8, went back to shoot. I sort of, at a point, you know, at a point I was sort of giving up and, you know, saying, all right, I accept that I am not going to be making features.
Because it was just hard to get anything rolling?
It was really hard. And in those days, it wasn't like it was, I came out to LA even for a while and tried to get a feature made, which Jodie Foster was producing. And but in those days, it wasn't, people were pretty blunt, like, well, we don't make women's films. Yeah, we're not doing that. Okay. So that was, I'm not saying that was the only thing, but that was a thing.
This was one of the many hurdles that
it was
ahead of you.
It was, yes. And some of the hurdles were my own in that, like, I wasn't skilled at knowing how to get those things done and work those channels and maneuver things.
Sure. You mean to play the game?
Play
like
the
that
game.
Version? Yeah.
I think I had a meeting with Sam Cohen and from ICM at the time. He was like the big guy at ICM, and this is before Google, in my defense, but I insisted upon that the actor in my next film would be Warren Oates, who was dead. You know, so I made my own mistakes.
Sure, so you're
of
saying,
which there were plenty.
I'm not making this movie unless I get Warren Oates.
And that's that.
So, well, guess what?
Yeah.
You're not going to make
the movie, right? And so anyway, for whatever reasons, but I started adjunct teaching in that time. I don't know if you remember, I was doing the couch hopping for about 5+ years in New York during that time.
Sure, yeah.
So and that got waiting for people to go on tour so I could stay at their houses and
water their plants and
feed the cat, whatever would be. And in between kind of showing up on friends' doors and being like, hey, what are you doing? It's 9:00. Hey, what's happening with your couch tonight? You know? And that got old for my friends. And I came out to LA, try to get it going here. That wasn't happening. And then I eventually went back to New York and decided I would try teaching, and I got a job at SVA. But I was also, at that point, working in the mail room at Kino. That's why I'm a little sensitive about the mail.
Sure.
You know, the mail. I was the WGBH mail person during college and art school, and then I went over to the Kino mailroom. Okay. And anyway, so I quite liked the teaching, and but I was trying to make some films that were less. I was trying to, you know, maybe I could do this less narrative thing and crack this other world. But I wasn't my brain doesn't really work that way. So
it's such a hard thing when you start and then you realize you're still starting. Like even you did a thing and it's just like you realize, I went through a door, and you realize, there's a couple more doors.
Yeah, there's more doors. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're through a few more doors now, at least at this point?
Doors. Yeah, I'm through some doors. I mean, now, you know, if someone said tomorrow, I mean, there was a while every time I made a film, I'm like, okay, this is our last chance. This is making everyone like it's the last thing.
Yeah.
And so, and now if someone says tomorrow, like, there's no more money for you to make films, I mean, I'd have to find something else to do as far as, you know, I mean, I teach for a living, so but I'd have to find something else to do that I was interested in to keep me going. But I'd feel like, all right, I got to make some films. It would be okay. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but you know, I could, it wouldn't be something that I would have a big chip on my shoulder if I never had gotten to make any films.
Sure.
You know, and so,
because you also had, as somebody who's a fan of everything you've made.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. River of Grass is a strange kind of like outlier in a way because you were still
I was figuring it out.
You were figuring it out, and the voice that people probably associate with you. I think if people go back and watch River of Grass, they're probably like, "Oh, that's a little different than what you expect from So what was that like to?
Well, I kept working during all, I kept like trying to, learn how to edit and kept working during all that time that I wasn't making a feature. I still like shooting. And then, in some ways one could say the films I was trying to get, I don't think the film I was trying to get made at the time would have been really that great. I do think that, one thing that happened is I met a writing partner, Jonathan Raymond, and I think finding someone who, I think that helped my filmmaking a lot, to have as a base, so not to be counting on my own writing completely on my own.
Okay.
I think that, and so, Lessons on River of Grass were, it's a battle and on a set, and until you find like the DP that's your DP, which Christopher Plobvelt is that guy for me now. But you have to really like. I used to in that day have to fight for my shots, and you're up against someone. And I really realized on River of Grass, like, oh my gosh, I don't really know what all the lenses are, and I don't know. So there was a lot to learn in between the two films, a lot.
Sure.
And still there's a lot to learn. So, really the great filmmakers are people that got to make a lot of films. If you look, like the studio film, the great, they made a ton of films. They were practicing all the time. And it's very hard to practice at film because it's so expensive.
But you did something also in that period where you were, I guess, what were you, in the wilderness?
Yes, yeah.
You made, like you said, you were making more experimental things. You were making shorter things.
Shorter things.
You made Ode,
yes,
which was one of the, which I guess is that kind of like a gray market movie?
It's,
degree?
It was Ode was taken from Ode to Billy Joe, which was like a song, a movie, and a book. None of which I had the rights to. So, that was just like an art project that no one was going to see. And it was, like shot in Super 8. And
co-starring.
The great Johnny Wooster.
That's right.
And Yola Tango and Will Oldham did the score. And so, yeah.
But so those were kind of those things that helped. Because when you did Old Joy, suddenly it's just like there was such a confidence in the voice and in the pacing, and you're just like you're making people go to you, which is one of my favorite things about the tone you've established ever since. It's like people, you're not walking it all the way to them and saying like, here, watch this. It's kind of like a shared thing. It's like I'll take a step toward you, but you need to take a step toward this rhythm and this level of volume in the movies and on the pacing. It's just like I have always admired the leap in confidence that you took after that and have maintained.
Well, I didn't know if Old Joy was like everyone sort of said they'd give me 2 weeks. And so I didn't know if it would be a short film, or at that point I'd already given up on the feature thing. And so I was this was going to be like another art project. I'm going to go out for shoot 2 weeks with these people. My real goal with Old Joy, honestly, was I wanted a better teaching job. And I thought I really wanted to teach at Bard because I had been on a film jury with Peggy Awish and Ed Halter. And I just thought, wow, these people are not cynics. They're like really interesting and into film and into teaching like this. I want to be where they are. So I mean, what a weird plan, but it actually worked. Like when Old Joy came out, Bard offered me a job, and I had been sort of stalking Peter Hutton for a job before that. But but it ended up being a feature, and it ended up going to Sundance. And but I made all those films with the feeling of like, well, I'm just going to have this one more chance to make a film. So I'll make it what I want it.
Sure. So it's every time it's all the chips are in on each one, which is the way to do it. Even if you know you can make more, it's nice to have a little bit of a fear of,
for sure,
you got to deliver. You can't just be like, well, we'll half-ass this one because we're going to get to do
it's
3
so much
more.
work. It's impossible to not like go for what you want. Like living with your own mistakes is really hard, but living with someone else's mistake would be harder.
No, that would haunt you forever. How do you describe, or how do people receive the pacing of your movies? Like, what has been your experience with that? Because for people who might be unfamiliar, you take your time with things. You're not just like bah, 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 bah. It's kind of like you need to just like.
But this is the speed the world is at. The what we consider the slow cinema of today. We're talking about 20 seconds before a cut, 30 seconds before a cut. I mean, I watch stuff like sometimes you watch things and you're just trying to get a sense of an actor, and you're not allowed because the camera won't ever rest on them, and it's just like, and I think that's I think that's because of consumerism, because of advertising. People want to get as many images in front of you as possible, and a lot of films have taken on that speed because that becomes the appetite.
Sure, it's like the post-commercial music video rhythms of things are just like, everything is just like making sure you're almost accommodating the least attentive members of the audience and not respecting the people who are ready to go somewhere with something. Right. Like,
well, it's funny. Last night at a screening, this young man came up to me and he said, he was explaining to me that he's been diagnosed with ADHD, but that he explained to his therapist that had to be wrong because he was a fan of slow cinema. And and he said, he explained the films that he likes, and then he said he realized he's thought a lot about it, but it's because with the slower pace cinema, he has to interact with it and he has to think and come up with things. It's not like he's just constantly being handed things, and so it slows his brain down. I thought, wow, that's like the best thing I ever heard about slow cinema. That's
amazing.
Good. Yeah.
You're providing
I'm helping people, Tom.
Sure.
This is really,
your movies are like pacemakers for these people.
This is important work I'm doing.
But I will say, when you watch so much stuff and then you watch, because I just rewatched pretty much everything over the last couple weeks. It just like, initially it is just like, there's always that first adjustment to where it's just like, no, I need to just exhale and kind of ride the ride and realize it's just like my attention has been requested to watch this movie, which is actually not asking much for people. Can you please pay attention to the movie you're watching? So with the new movie,
right now people are just deciding not to go. They're like, this is snoozy.
This is why you're not. Yeah. This is why you're not in the marketing department.
Right. That's right.
This is why you direct these things. So you're just sort of, I'm going to say, I saw it. It's great. And it's really funny. I think it might be the funniest of your movies. Yeah. I think of all of them. I think it's the funniest one. And it deals with something that you don't see a lot, which is the actual reality of how art and being an artist fits into an actual real life. Right. And the demands and the everything that it takes to continue to make art while existing in the real world without being, because most stories about artists are, it's like Van Gogh is like, was it Lust for Life, or these things are just like, but the reality is 99.9% of the people making art have other jobs and they have to
such
go
as myself.
Yeah, exactly. Such as me too.
Yeah, right.
It just everybody, and it was such a really impressive thing to see you capturing what that just the grind feels like of that. But then there's the moments where you're just like, oh, well, this is why I'm in it.
Yeah, this is why you're doing it. Yeah. And some people I think just have, it's how you can make your life work, because you have this compulsion, and it helps everything else in life make sense. The actual just making of something, regardless if, you have a built-in audience or not. But you just, it's nourishing to have a sort of practice of getting to whatever it is, the table or the studio or whatever it is. And, getting your hands in the clay, Tom. Yeah.
Sure.
But, so that's kind of what we wanted to, that was...
Are things kind of, when you approach something like this, or I'm just curious in general, there's a way to be like, do you think of like a time or a place or a situation like outside in and figure out who the characters that would live in that world are? Or do you think of a character and what, like, do you go inside out or outside? I think
just figuring out who the characters are is the first thing, and how they relate to each other, like the family structure.
Sure.
But we were, this school we shot at, the Oregon College of Arts and Crafts, was an important place in the Pacific Northwest. And like a lot of art schools, it's closed. And so we got to shoot there because it was COVID, basically. But we wanted, it's a beautiful, unique campus and place that's, going to be renovated or whatever. So we really wanted to shoot there and have that be the school worked into the story of these two artists. And we even sort of started out kind of with Michelle's character, Lizzie. We knew what art we wanted it to be, and we're kind of starting there, like figuring out who the characters were, sort of working back with the art. And that's the artist Cynthia Latte. And so there was like figuring out how, like I was saying to both the actors when they were spending time with the makers, so they could learn how to do the art. Like you're not looking at these people, these artists, like that's not who these characters are. John and I had this other idea, which was a kind of a big salad of people we knew, and but spending time with them, there's no way, the art's so personal, there's no way, I'm sure they're not like sponging up things about the actual artist. So yeah,
and it feels like tonally you've got this thing where you're having fun, but it's not just like you're not drilling the community of artists, but you know what's funny about that world, and kind of handing yourself this is my life, and this is where I live, and there's kind of no getting out. Once you've
and there's no I it was like a place for me too, where we're finally teaching, and I've been at Bard for almost 20 years now. It could come together with filmmaking. And so even like my colleague from Bard, Ben Coonley, came and built the dome with the projections on it. And so he worked with Tony Gasparo and the art team. And that was cool, just having those worlds come together. And the school was empty when we started, and so we kind of had to figure out what would be in every room and get all these young artists in Portland came out. Everyone had time because it was COVID, and just started making stuff in all the rooms, and we brought in the loom, so everyone was making stuff. And then these young actors are just hanging around, so they just start getting their hands in the clay and the dye, and so it became this functional place of stuff being made while we were shooting, which was just awesome. It was really great.
So it was taking on a life of its own.
It
actually,
absolutely
it's
did.
Organically becoming an art.
It was
a world of
and
art.
It was. That was fun. That was great.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's it. It is like a very, because sometimes when you're in this world and you're trying to get things going, and it's like you could get knocked over by like a feather when you're at your low point with the stuff. So anytime there can be any kind of like community or comfort that comes from kind of putting yourself out there, taking the risk, saying, I'm going to use, my life is dedicated to making things.
Yes, right.
And it's just like anytime you can find those those people or those places,
right,
it makes all the difference.
completely.
It just like, I mean, I've been out here for a couple years now, and I just try to find like pockets of, because it's so easy to feel bad about yourself in this line of work. It's the easiest thing in the world to feel like you're what you aren't versus what you are.
Yeah, I think teaching kind of keep like the way again, getting back to the years where I couldn't do stuff, it was like we made a film, we made Ode with, 2 crew people and 2 actors, and then we made Old Joy with 6 people, like including crew and actors.
Wow.
And then we made Wendy and Lucy with 13 people. So it's really grown up, and I've been teaching that whole time, which takes the weight off having to make a living off the films. And so it also keeps, like, my bubble of the film world is so like the community of people I make films with, and then I'm teaching.
Sure.
And so I don't, I haven't, though, during those 10 years of trying to get into something that already existed, I know exactly what you feel. Like there was a lot of feeling bad and excluded. But then now I just feel out of it. Like I just don't know what goes on because
well, you're
I'm in these little
now.
or just that I'm in these little communities. And it's not that I'm bulletproof or anything. Like I could put out a film and people wouldn't like it, and that would be bad. But I'm in some communities where it doesn't put. Yes, I have to get money for the next film, but I don't have to. There was what I think makes you feel bad is if your life gets put in a way, and this film is so expensive to make, even the smallest film, where you're at the mercy of someone else to open a door for you. Like that is, like the people in the film can, not to romanticize not having people to show your work to, but a bag of clay is, you can figure it out. Like you can, though the artist, when I approached her about, the film, she was packing up her studio and being like, yeah, it's not worth it. No one wants to see these things. And now she's on fire making stuff like crazy, And
that's like the exciting part, and also the frustrating.
Totally.
It's because you don't get to say when or how.
Or maybe.
Or if.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just like, it just is that. It truly is a leap.
Yeah.
You take when you say you're going to make these things.
Yes. But, my dear colleague, Peter Hutton, rest in peace, filmmaker that I loved, and a colleague at Bard, like students would come in with all these kind of issues of whatever, grades or whatever it was. And he would just always say, like, who gives a shit? Like, what'd you shoot today? What'd you shoot? And I think that's like what the film is trying to say, like, the important, like in the 10 years I couldn't make anything, I still made stuff. Like you got to keep working in case the door opens, or just for your own, how you're going to spend a day and what you're going to, just for other reasons. Like you got to get down and just do the work at some point. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is the kind of thing I've found, being somebody who in a lot of ways has been kind of outside the circle or system, whatever you want to call it. Like I get TV jobs and things like that. Those are ultimately jobs. It's not, that's not what I'm living for in the scheme of things. Yeah. But the things I care about, doing this show, doing other things that are much more personal, I feel like being outside the circle has been such a gift.
Totally.
Because it's like you're just not scared of anything.
Yeah. It's
like,
a complete gift. Yeah.
It's like you figure out how little it takes to do a thing.
Yeah.
And then you do it.
That's it. Exactly. No. Trying to get on the inside is a mistake.
It's a huge mistake.
It's a huge mistake.
I got to get one of these teaching jobs you've got.
Yes.
They hiring at Bard for Somebody
maybe you just gotta, get your name in the hat, Tom.
Sure.
No, but the
so
conversation.
They drew your name from a hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
maybe you've read a little book, The Road Less Traveled.
Okay, yes, I should. Let me write that down. The Road Less Traveled. Okay.
Be sure to 1972.
Yeah. But when you decided to make something where people you're knocking on the door, here's a script, because you had a script, I remember, it was Royal Court. Yeah. Right?
Wow, you are good. Wow.
I mean, I read a few drafts of that.
Oh, you did? Oh my God, that's so embarrassing.
But it was okay. No, it's not embarrassing. It was great. Yeah. But it was meant to level up scope-wise in terms of from River of Grass, in terms of it was a bigger endeavor. You were trying to get going.
As far as, it's funny because it was kind of a personal film because it was all my dad's crime scene stories.
Sure.
But it had, I guess it would have had a bigger cast. It would have needed more than $30,000, which I think was the budget for River of Grass. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I mean. You were definitely saying what if we made a little $1.5 million movie or million or whatever. I'm just saying for an apartment. Well, when you start getting Jodie Foster involved, there's other people.
But listen, look at the people I've had involved. I don't get big. I mean, my budgets are
now they are. But I'm saying now. I'm saying at that point you're trying to play the game potentially, and now you're just you're playing your own game.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever thought anyone was going to give me $1 million.
Well, we have a surprise for you. Bring it in.
Come on. Bring in that big check.
There's a sack of money. We're going to pour it, make a bad movie now. No, but it's just, there is that point. I've found the best thing that could have happened to me is...
I really wanted to get out of Bob Lawton's office. See, I was really trying.
So badly to get out of there.
Jim Romeo was becoming my boss.
Jim Romeo was your boss. That's,
right.
No, but it's just... it just was such a gift to not be scared of stuff.
Yeah.
It's you're empowered through your powerlessness. You are more empowered than the people who are on the teat of somebody else's money. Yes. Oh, we can't do it without 60 people on the crew. We can't do it without this. It's just you start to realize, and the times I've dipped my toes into directing things, it's just it's you do it, and you do because you better want to do it.
You better,
because there's not a whole lot else there for you unless it's your own satisfaction. And
yes,
where are we at time wise, Brett? Okay, we'll do another 5, and we'll let you catch up on your schedule because you're a little.
Oh, I'm a little behind. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The music is such a part of your life. Obviously,
yes.
Music has always been mine too. In your movies, you use it so strategically, and so much of stuff is just diegetic. Yeah. Right. Diegetic. Yes. See, again, I'm learning here. And diegetic means it's if somebody's walking by a radio, you hear music come out of a radio. You don't hear just a score.
Right.
But you utilize that so strategically with that. But a movie like First Cow, it seems like you embraced a score, William Tyler.
Yeah.
Kind of, that was a little more full on. I thought music wise, the music is more of a presence throughout that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure.
And how does that, is that just a matter of you feeling what it needs in the process? Because you edit your own movies too, which is another.
Yeah. William Tyler came in because some of the films don't really have, unless you're in a grocery store, there's not too much music to speak of except for in the credits or something. But William Tyler came into the editing room and I had been trying a lot of different things, even music of the era, which didn't work out at all. And then I probably a million people had the Hired Hand soundtrack at whichever. But anyway, he came in with his dulcimer and guitar and plucked around in the editing room and then went and did stuff. But yeah, it was a process and it was good. But it really, happened later in the editing on that one. Yeah. And I guess that's usually how it goes.
Okay. Well, you feel how much is going to make this
right.
work?
Yeah. Because I've had, well, in Meeks, I worked with, I can't remember the guy who scored it. I'm spacing on his name. Jeff Grace.
Jeff
okay.
Grace. Okay.
Wow. He did a great score, I thought, for me. It was, it's weird sounds. We were mostly working with like wind instruments and sounds. Like that was kind of like, don't think of score, think of sounds for Meeks and Night Moves. And then Certain Women, he did a score, and I only used like one little bit of score in that movie. And it came in and went out, came in and went out. And depending on the day I had to get out of the editing room, it could have gone either way. Mm-hmm. It's like, it works this way with it, works this way without it. One of them. Mm-hmm. So, it's a weird, I like to deal with all the other sounds and then see how music works. But this, in showing up, I really felt like I needed some sort of like technology to counter all the tactile stuff that's in the movie. And so our Ethan Rose, he came into the edit room with his computer, and that's how that music gets made. And so,
yeah. You mentioned Certain Women. I just watched Certain Women last night, and the Lily Gladstone stuff is maybe the most. Like, I just started bawling my eyes out.
Lily.
That's one of the most. That's one of the most amazing performances.
She's great.
I've ever seen in anything, let alone for somebody as relatively new to the game as Lily was at that point. It must be so exciting to see. Like, now she's in this Scorsese movie.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
And she came and did a part in First Cow, and she had to learn a Cayuse like a Chinook language, and she I think she's the one I've learned since, and someone who actually speaks the language heard it, and I said, "How'd we do?" And he's like, "Lily got it. Lily was good." I was like, "Okay." But really fantastic. Which is funny because the first days we shot with Lily, we started outside with the wide shots in the on the ranch, and she had been working with the rancher for so long. She was really, and I had stripped everything down because I didn't want the horses to be scared of the crew. So it was just like 4 people and no one doing her makeup or no prop. She was managing her own props and everything, and so she just kept. Like, we'd shoot the part she's supposed to shoot. She'd walk out of frame to go get a bucket for the horse. Like, oh, this isn't supposed to be over there. And I'd be, I don't care, Lily, because I'm making a movie right now. This is what we're doing now, making a movie. And then she, it was really, it came to this, there was this moment where she was like, Kelly, I know you're the days, like once you feed the horses, that's it. Like you're done. You can't refeed them. So if that doesn't work out, that's over for the day. And we had a limited amount of time. I know you're really frustrated, Kelly, but I talked to my grandmother about this, and she said, the only thing that matters is you're all together and the sunset and this. And listen, Lily, no, stop talking to your grandmother. Listen to me. You're like, right? Yeah.
Your grandmother's directing this movie.
Listen, I don't care if you shoot about the sun. All this, this is what I need. You're going to get this. And then I realized, like, I'd put her in this position where, it's like keeping everyone away to sort of make it so real. What I needed to do was like get the prop person back in, get the costume person, get the makeup in, and make her feel like she's in a movie. And that was the corrective. But it was a couple days till I was shooting in a small space where I was really getting close to her, and I realized, like, wow, you could put a camera like 2 inches from her face, and she can just be truly herself. There's no like perform. I mean, it took me a few before, and I was like, oh my God, this person's, I'm into something really lucky and wonderful here. No, and
she's truly amazing.
Yeah, she's great. And so that was that was luck of not even luck. She really sought us out, and she really did a couple readings. She was great, and her readings really stood out. Yeah, so I'm really happy for her.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up. I just want to say one thing. First of all, the movie's showing up. It's so great. I was so blown away by it. Congratulations on another winning streak. This winning streak. You're like
we're just winning. I'm just winning.
10-0 now. 9-0. 10-0. I don't know. The only thing I have to say about the movie: somebody driving in a car, listening to the radio. I do that. But in this movie, who do we hear coming through the thing? Todd-ophonic Todd.
That's right.
It's the only red mark I'm giving on your movie.
A red mark. Oh.
Negative.
That's it. Because it took you out of Portland?
That could have been me.
Oh.
That's all I'm saying.
Oh, God.
Todd has enough. How much does Todd need?
You're right.
I'm going to get my I need my break. I need my Lily Gladstone moment.
Okay. Gosh, wow.
I'm happy for Todd. He deserves everything he gets from it. Nothing but the
Listen,
best
he's living in
Todd.
Jersey. Mm-hmm. You're out here in La La Land. Give the guy a break.
Sure, exactly. To be fair, yes, Todd,
kudos.
I'll see you at the Oscars, Todd, for best supporting actor. I can see he'd be the shortest.
He's in the union now.
Did he have to join? No,
I don't know, actually.
No, I hope. Todd, you know I'm just teasing.
He has to pay dues from now on.
Yes. But seriously, this is
thanks.
so great.
I'm so happy you have your show.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming and doing this. And
love it.
When's the movie? Tell people.
Oh, April 7th. It comes out in New York and Los Angeles.
Yes.
And then I think on the 14th it does some more cities, Chicago, Boston, and so on.
Well, it's great. People should definitely make a point of showing up in a theater. And Kelly Reichardt, thank you for doing this. It was so much fun. Oh, goodness gracious. How was that? That was fun. Kelly Reichardt, my hero. It's important to have heroes in this life, and Kelly Reichardt's one of my heroes. Here are my heroes. Santa Claus, Kelly Reichardt, Rodney Dangerfield, Roddy Rossetti. So many heroes out there.